Welcome back. So starting out the week, the guys have been busy working on this next round of plugs, and these are the ones for the two rear baggage doors. And this is the left hand side parachute strap cover. So as you can see, the guys are just putting down some resin and Cabasil mix in preparation for putting a layer of fiberglass on that one. And meanwhile, I was busy putting together the reduction drive again after we got the new oil shuttle back. So this is the main bearing sort of housing or sleeve that needs to be pressed into place. So that's in now, and I've got the actual bearing sitting in there and all greased up. So as you can see, just ready to put the prop shaft through there now, and then bolt it up from the back side. I've got to put that oil seal in too. That's the front oil seal. And here is the right hand side parachute cover plug, and as you can see, Jeff's in the process of spraying the putty on there so we can get it back on the machine and do the final milling for that one. And here's Devin and Zach again, and this time they're putting the glass down on that one for the baggage doors, the baggage compartment doors. So just one layer of glass, what they do now, and then it's ready to have the putty sprayed on after that sets up, which is usually the next day. And here's that oil seal ready to be pressed into place, and just using a little bit of 2x4 that I had trimmed from previous times putting this together and putting that on the press. So now that's in, as you can see, kind of under there. So now I've got the shaft installed there, and take off my red tape there in a second, and then I can put the rear bearing on there and with the stake nut and to lock it all into place. And that's how it looks with the nut on there, so it just needs the back cover put on and it's all ready to go back onto the engine. And back on the machine, this is the right hand parachute strap plug. Now that the putty's been sprayed on, just getting underway with milling that off. Just using my short 3/4 inch flat mill there, and starting the path out on the actual strap thing itself and not the flange. And here's Jeff in the process of putting the sealant inside the tank. So this is the Jeffco product that we get from Spruce, and as you can see, just putting it on all the sidewalls and the lower stuff, not putting it on the upper flanges of the baffles themselves, where the wing top is going to secure, but everywhere else is putting it on there, and I believe he ends up putting a couple of coats on there altogether. And this is that right hand side parachute strap one off the machine now. As you can see, it came out pretty nicely. Nothing very complicated about it, just the part and the flange around the outside. And back on the machine, this one is going to be the door for the vent that lives in the bottom of the engine cowling, and so you'll see how that one turns out shortly. And here it is, just a little bit further along, almost done, and just basically flange all the way around the outside, and then the part itself. And this is the left hand side parachute strap plug, just getting underway. Now this is actually today, so I'm actually just jumping around a little bit with the timeline here, so don't get sort of too confused. The other ones were Monday, and this is today. And back on the right side one now, Devin just in the process of doing the initial sanding on that one. The pink guide coat has been put on there, so these ones go really fast. So we're actually getting pretty close now to finishing off all of the big plugs, except for the couple of ribs in the foreplane. And here's Jeff putting the, I believe, second coat of sealant there on the right hand side straight tank, just wiping off the flanges there, just to remove any sort of that got on there, because that has to have the skin bonded on. And there's the baggage doors one, so that's been sprayed with putty now, and it's ready to go back up on the machine. Okay, so back to Monday evening, I had everything back together, and I filled the engine up with oil, and proceeded to just turn the engine over with the ECU turned off, and without the fuel pump on, so it wouldn't start, because I wanted to build up oil pressure and get the prop shaft all filled up with oil and make sure that the pressure was coming up nicely. So on the top side where it feeds into it, I was getting 200 psi, and here on the outlet, which as you can see there's the new outlet line that runs back to the sump, I was getting 0 pressure on there, which is what I want. I just wanted to basically feed back with no pressure back into the sump, and this actual video was done before I tightened everything up, so you'll see I moved this thing here, but anyway, it was tightened up after that. So anyway, after running it over or turning it over a bunch and getting the pressure that I was looking for, I decided to finally just fire it up and see if there's going to be a problem. And turned it over, and it started immediately. It ran for about 5 seconds, and then the prop immediately locked up. So excuse this still image while I explain what happened next. So I tried to move the prop, and it was just seized. So the inside of the housing, and obviously what it was is this change. Something with the prop shaft and the new shuttle had basically seized together, and you know, there's nothing I could do about it then. It was already 6:30 at night, and thought, oh, well, I'll just go home and think about, you know, the possibilities of this. And you know, when I got home, I thought about it for a while, and I thought, well, maybe it just got hot and it jammed up because the tolerance was so tight. And that was my best case scenario. The worst case scenario was it was completely destroyed on the inside, but it didn't make a lot of noise or anything or grinding. It just basically stopped very quickly, but it wasn't like a big jolt or anything like that. It just stopped moving. Anyway, so I figured I'd come in the morning and pull it all down again and see if I could get it apart and have a look at what happened. And I actually managed to do that. I managed to get it apart and press it open using our press. And this is basically what happened here. So this is the top there, the purple, showing how the oil comes in that main groove, and then it's that very tight tolerance there, about 1/1000th there, and allows the oil to sort of seep through. So it still puts most of the oil going into the prop shaft, but it can actually seep through to the sides there. That's where you're seeing the purple. And then so there, here, now you can see it with the moving. So oil comes in through there, and it pushes through that very tiny 1/1000th or so gap, and then it can actually go out the drain holes on the side there. So it's under high pressure in the middle and zero pressure on the sides. Well, when I had come up with a design for this, I had the same type of wall over there, thinking there'd be more pressure in that second thing. And where those orange bits are there wasn't any pressure there. There was no pressure to push the oil through there, and it had the same tolerance or same clearance. And so with no oil running through there, it got really hot. And as you can see here, this is exactly what happened. This is the worst scenario there. It looks like it literally welded the two pieces together there on that one sort of ridge there. And then you can see the two middle ones are fine, and then the far one also has damage to it as well, because it wasn't getting any oil coming across. And my thinking was now that, well, it's draining really well, we're still getting the pressure that we want in the prop. We don't need these walls anymore, because the oil seals on the outside can handle a reasonable amount of pressure, and so we don't need to have those walls. So fortunately, I was able to get it apart and salvage it. And so this is the solution now, is to basically lift those walls or widen those last walls out there, as you can see, and allow the oil to run all the way to the oil seals on the edge there. And actually just using the old regular oil seals now, as I mentioned last time. And so this is the solution now, and I know the middle part works because that didn't get damaged at all. And now these side parts are not going to touch anything, so I think we've really got the solution now. So ran up to Brits, to the ER, and put the shuttle on the lathe there, and as you can see there, I'm taking down that mount. So anyway, back in the shop, this is the baggage door plug now underway on the machine, and as you can see there, just starting out with the doors themselves. That's how I like to do the parts now. Run the actual main area first, and then go and do the flanges after that, and get a cleaner edge on the part when I'm done. And this is that other one there, the left hand side parachute strap cover plug. Got the guide coat on there, and that one's ready for sanding as well for the first round. And we'd been waiting on some new glue that we used to glue down this thing, because the other one kind of went off and wasn't actually sticking any longer. So guys finally got that, and this one is now ready to have the mold laid up. And here's that one for the door, the vent opening door for the cowling. So the guys have got that one glass now, so it's ready to have putty sprayed on. And as you can see, they're not wasting any time. This is that first one already in primer, so that we'll get that's the first round of primer, get sanded again, another round of primer, and be ready for waxing. And one of our followers kindly pointed out the other day that jet fuel nozzles now have these much larger nozzles than avgas ones, and the caps that we're using weren't going to be big enough if you ever went to an airport with the large nozzles, so I had to upgrade to these guys, which means Jeff is in the process of taking out the other caps so he can get these new ones put in, and these ones are a lot more expensive too, unfortunately, but you know, we've got to be able to put fuel in the tanks when we show up at an airport. And finally, here's the prop shaft there after I cleaned it up at Britt's, and there's the oil housing shuttle, sorry, looking all sorted out and cleaned up and ready to go back to action. So in the process of putting that back together, and I really think this time now I know I've said this a few times, but I really think we've got the solution now, because I've seen this actually working, at least for the center section part. And so in the process of getting that all back together, and as you can see, I got most of it done. So tomorrow I'll have it back on, then probably be running the engine tomorrow night. So dodged a bit of a bullet on that one, and but anyway, now we'll move on and get the engine running and get everything else back underway. So that's our update for the first half of this week, and thanks again for watching.